Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.
On News Hour tonight, 24-hour curfew imposed in Plateau community relaxed. GOC meets warring parties. Price of sweet potato considered alternative food goes up in Kano. Senate President constitutes standing committees selection panel. And on the foreign scene, Russian officials fire warnings at West as NATO meets on Ukraine. Hello and welcome to News Hour on Trust TV. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Now the news in detail. We begin with security, where Plateau State Governor Caleb Mutfwang has relaxed the 24-hour curfew imposed in Mongu local government area. Movement is now restricted between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. A statement signed by Director of Press and Public Affairs to the governor, Gyang Bere, said the decision to relax the curfew was reached after a review of the security situation in the area by the State Security Council to allow students writing the National Examination Council and Junior Secondary School examination complete their exams. In the meantime, the Commander, Operation Safe Haven, and General Officer Commanding 3rd Division of the Nigerian Army, Major General Abdusalam Abubakar, on Monday, held an emergency meeting with all stakeholders from Mongu local government area of Plateau State. The GOC called for the meeting to broker peace between Fulani and Magavul communities following the incessant attacks and killings in various communities. The commander gave both sides the privilege to voice out their grievances to find out what led to the attacks and subsequent reprisal attacks that have lasted 3 months. General Abubakar urged both parties to embrace peace for development to thrive in Mongu. He also pleaded with them to sheath their swords as a welcome gift to him on the plateau. Earlier, we spoke to Daily Trust reporter in Jos, Ado Musa. He gives us an update of the situation.
Meanwhile, the commander of Operation Safe Haven, Major General Abdusalami Abubakar, has held an emergency meeting with all stakeholders from Mongu local government area, where the Magavul community, Fulani communities, traditional rulers, and religious leaders were all present. The commander told the gathering that the meeting was purposely held in order to understand one another, in order to embrace peace among them, in order to also ensure that peace is restored within Mongu general area. During the meeting, the commander also asked all parties, particularly the warring parties, to voice out their grievances so as to find the lasting solution to the problem, which during the presentation by the warring parties, all of them now voice out their grievances and hope that the security agencies will do the needful to ensure peace within Mongu general area. The commander, however, also promised to extend this particular or this kind of peace meeting to the remote areas, particularly areas that were affected by the crisis, which he feels that it is when this meeting are extended to these areas that people will be able to sensitize on the need to live with one another.
That was Daily Trust reporter in Plateau State, Ado Musa. In the same vein, President Bola Tinubu has expressed sadness and grief over the latest round of violence and killings in Plateau State. A statement signed by his special advisor, Special Duties, Communications and Strategies, Dele Alake, the president condemned the most recent killings in Mongu local government area of Plateau State and parts of Benue State. Alake said President Tinubu found very depressing the festering reprisal attacks, needless and avoidable bloodletting among communities in the two states, saying it is unfortunate that an innocent 8-month-old baby in Fadanlamba community of Wang district, Jos South local government area, died in a conflict she knew nothing about. The statement said to rebuild trust and restore harmony to these conflict areas. President Tinubu urged community leaders, religious leaders, traditional rulers, socio-cultural organizations, as well as the leadership of Arewa Consultative Forum, Jama'atu Nasir Islam, and Christian Association of Nigeria to work together to help foster genuine and long-lasting peace. While reaffirming his government's strong determination to stamp out violent crimes and all forms of criminalities everywhere in Nigeria, the president had directed security agencies to fish out the masterminds of the dastardly attacks to face the full wrath of the law. He, however, charged the governments of Plateau and Benue states and emergency response agencies to provide support and immediate relief to victims who have been displaced as a result of the conflicts. Still on Plateau, the House of Representatives has urged the National Security Advisor to declare the killings in Plateau State a national emergency. This was sequel to a motion of urgent public importance by Representative Denchung Bogos from Plateau State on terrorist attacks on Mangu communities of Mangu Bokos Federal Constituency of Plateau State on Tuesday at plenary. The report.
The recent terrorist attacks on the people of Mangu local government and neighboring communities have left more than 300 persons dead and others seriously injured, property destroyed, and over 18,000 people displaced at different IDP camps within the local government area. According to the lawmaker, most of the victims that sustained various degrees of injuries are currently receiving medical attention at different hospitals within the state. He expressed worry that the continuous attack by terrorist groups in the communities, if not addressed immediately, will negatively affect famine, which will worsen the existing food crisis in the communities.
Concerned that most of my people live in fear of the unknown due to insecurity and can no longer access their farmlands and their mining sites. Further concerned that unless the issue of insecurity is handled with doggedness at all levels in the country, citizens will experience food shortage, as Plateau is one of the main producers of food crops in the country.
Lawmakers want security operatives to provide aerial surveillance and support to flush out the terrorists and destroy their camps to avoid reoccurrence and allow farmers to return to their farms and ancestral homes.
Handle the killings going on in Plateau State as a national emergency because of the gravity of which these killings are being done and the constant reoccurrence. I believe if the Office of the National Security Advisor comes into this, there will be a difference.
The House unanimously adopted the motion and urged the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to direct the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management and Social Development through the National Emergency Management Agency (NEMA) and the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons to immediately provide relief materials to victims of the attacks in the communities within Mangu local government area. In another development, the House of Representatives has called for the suspension of the implementation of increase in tuition fees in universities. This was equal to a motion sponsored by Aliyu Sani Madaki, who noted the hike in fees by universities is happening against the worsening poverty level in the country, inflation high rate of employment, and the recent fuel price hike.
Also concerned that the increase could cause disruptions for a number of students who could not afford the fees, while many of them could be forced to depart their studies. Others could drop out. Worried that the hike may aggravate the already volatile situation in the country, as students are already making threats which could lead to an uprising with grievous consequences for the country as a whole.
He urged the National Universities Commission to immediately halt implementation of the increase in fees by federal universities while mandating the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services, when constituted, to investigate the increase in fees by federal universities across the country with a view to finding lasting solutions to the challenges in the tertiary education sector.
The House of Representatives has constituted an ad hoc committee to screen the recently appointed service chiefs. Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, who announced the setting up of the panel on Tuesday at plenary, said all the 8 principal officers of the House from the majority and minority parties will be part of the ad hoc committee. He also announced the immediate past chairman of the House Committee on Defense, Babajimi Benson, as the co-chairman of the committee. President Tinubu had on June 19 appointed Major General Christopher Musa as the new Chief of Defense Staff and Major General Taurid Lagbaja as Chief of Army Staff. Tinubu also appointed Emmanuel Ogala, a Rear Admiral, as Chief of Naval Staff, and Hassan Abubakar, an Air Vice Marshal, as the Chief of Air Staff, while Emmanuel Undiandeye, a Major General, was appointed Chief of Defense Intelligence. The President had, in a letter to the Senate President and Speaker of the House of Representatives, conveyed the nominations of the service chiefs to the National Assembly for their confirmation. Still talking security, armed bandits on Monday night killed 4 policemen serving under Bungudu local government area of Zamfara State. The policemen were on routine patrol along Bungudu-Gusau Road when the armed bandits ambushed and opened fire on them. The spokesperson for the Zamfara State Police Command, ASP Yazid Abubakar, confirmed the latest attack. A resident of Bungudu town, Ibrahim Bungudu, also confirmed that 4 policemen were killed during the attack. The resident said the bandits also shot 1 person at Tegero village under the Furfuri district of Bungudu local government area. He said the bandits attacked the policemen around midnight, killing 4 of them manning a checkpoint. Bandits numbering about 40 on Monday night attacked Yangaya village of Batsari local government area of Katsina State. In the aftermath of the attack, several people were feared abducted. The bandits were said to have arrived at the community a few minutes after 10 p.m. and embarked on a house-to-house search of their victims. Abdullahi Yamadi has an update for us.
Well, the attackers abducted an unspecified number of women and rustled dozens of domestic animals from the community. A pregnant woman who jumped into a nearby river died on the spot in an attempt to escape being kidnapped. And of course, everybody knows Yangaya is one of the most ravaged communities in Katsina State, with many residents fleeing the village to other neighboring communities perceived safer. The chairman of the local council, Alhaji Yusuf Yanji, told Trust TV that he was not aware of any bandits attack in Yangaya or any neighboring community. He, however, promised to find out and call back, but up to the time of compiling this report, nothing was heard from him. In a similar vein, I contacted police authorities in Katsina. The spokesman told me that they are trying to put 1 or 2 things together and, of course, find out from the police division in Batsari whether there was that attack or not. And he promised calling back. And, of course, he has no call back up to this moment. Conclusively, there are a lot of untold stories in the insecurity frontline areas of Katsina State. And one thing that is very important is that rainy season has set in everywhere in Katsina State. Farming communities want to go back to their farms. And this is the season. At least they need to go back, engage themselves into farming activities, at least to get what they will eat in the coming years.
Niger State Governor Mohammed Umaru Bago has launched Operation Flush as a first step towards addressing security challenges bedeviling the state. He also donated 20 operational vehicles to security operatives to help curb crimes in Minna, the state capital, and its environs. Launching the operation in Government House Minna, Bago expressed concern over the security challenges faced in the state capital, saying that the vehicles would facilitate adequate patrol of the city. The governor advised the Commissioner of Police in the state to ensure that security operatives make proper use of the vehicles. Bago also announced a war against sales of illicit drugs, warning that any building found housing drug dealers would be confiscated and demolished. The governor said out of the 20 vehicles, police will take ownership of 12, State Security Service and Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps should be given 2 each, while Vigilante Group of Nigeria, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Hunters Group and Anti-Drug Committee will receive 1 each.
It is intended to flush all hoodlums and criminal elements within the metropolis and also in the state. And again, we have realized that a lot of drug trafficking and drug-related issues are happening in Minna. We have given them a marching order. First, anybody that is found selling drugs, his building should be confiscated and brought down. We are going to give zero tolerance to drugs. And therefore, anybody that is warehousing drug dealers or cartel in his own premises is at his own risk.
We appreciate and we salute the governor of Niger State for the provision of these 20 operational vehicles, 12 for the police and the other ones for other security agencies. And in our own part now, we have gotten something and we are going to showcase our activities, our actions. So Nigeria should be expecting total commitment to flushing out of these criminal elements in the metropolis.
On behalf of Niger State government, we want to commission these vehicles for your operations. This is your stress of operation in Minna metropolis. These vehicles must be used within what we call Minna, from Paiko until you get to beach. Bismillah.
Sweet potato, locally produced in abundance and considered as an alternative food amidst a rising cost of living, is relatively scarce in Kano State. Trust TV correspondent Idris Jibrin reports that the price of sweet potato in the state has also gone up. His report.
For quite some time now, the price of Irish potato in Kano, like in many other parts of the country, has continued to increase, largely due to the high cost of transportation among other challenges.
Honestly, the business of Irish potato is not going well these days, both between the buyers and the sellers. Everything is terrible. But people are talking about because of the high cost of diesel that we use in transporting the Irish from different parts of the country, that contributed to make it even worse.
Alternatively, residents in Kano are now switching to sweet potato, which the traders say is less cost-effective compared to Irish potato.
The increase in the price of sweet potato is not from us, it's from the irrigation farmers, because they have spent a lot of money in fertilizer and what have you to cultivate it. Therefore, they have to increase the price.
This is one of the sweet potato market in Kano. But although the demand has continued to increase, there is short in supply at the moment.
Why the price of sweet potato is increasing on daily basis? Because it is not its season. Anyone you see here is from the irrigation farms. So the season has not yet come. That is why, because what we are having is not in large quantity like during its season. So definitely the price will have to increase. Residents say the price of the sweet potato is also increasing owing to the scarcity of the product in the market.
Food for the poor, but now both the rich and the poor is eating it.
Irish potato is becoming unaffordable for the middle income earners, which is why people are now going for sweet potato across Kano State. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria says Nigerian businesses struggle to compete and usually fail after 5 years. According to Smidden, the business sector now faces a harsher environment fueled by fuel subsidy removal, forex fluctuations, insecurity, and a consistent rise in the inflation rate. All these, accompanied by other debilitating factors, have directly triggered a hike in the price of goods and services, which does not only affect the consumer, but also the entrepreneur. Chamunda Bank has the report.
Nigerian businesses are struggling to stay afloat amidst a myriad of challenges that are pushing many entrepreneurs to spend more on buying products. Despite spending more, there has been a significant decline in profit due to the removal of fuel subsidy, which has led to an astronomical increase in prices of commodities. This, to many, is now a major stumbling block to the growth of Nigerian businesses. Small business owner Moses Obi gives an insight into his personal struggles.
Prices have gone up, and then the purchasing power of your customer has gone down. So somebody that back in the days be able to come out and maybe order 2 fish and 3 chicken, now if they even order 1 chicken, you'll be grateful. With every new thing that happens, I am being pushed further and further down the ladder, and I'm being forced to spend even more money while I am consistently making less money. And then to make it worse, the less money that I'm even making is losing value consistently.
Though businesses have adjusted their prices to fit today's economic realities, the fact remains that the salary of the average Nigerian remains the same while the cost of living is on a constant hike. This means that even with a price adjustment, the diminishing purchasing power of their consumer base does little to keep the businesses running.
As we are right now, we've had to close down our branch and have moved to delivering from home and cooking from home. Because the price of rent, trying to eke out rent while trying to maintain prices that are customer friendly and being able to meet up with my expenses, rent is a burden I can't necessarily handle.
According to a survey by SMIDAN, Nigeria has approximately 39.6 million SMEs, of which about 38 million are nano and micro enterprises. The agency says 75% of these businesses depend on fuel as an alternative means of power, with their generators running for 8 to 9 hours per day on average. Chief Strategy Officer to the DG of SMIDAN, Onesi Lawani, explains the impact on the mortality rate of SMEs in Nigeria, which he noted was already high.
Globally, the mortality rate of MSMEs, especially here in Nigeria, those that survive, when you start an enterprise, the ones that survive maybe up to the 50th year or beyond their 50th year is less than 30–40%. So that means you have over 60 out of every 100 enterprises closing or shutting down. We still have high rate of unemployment. So the last time I went through some document, unemployment rate amongst the youth, this is 41%. Now, if you now have more of these 39 million MSMEs shutting down, you cannot imagine what's going to happen to our unemployment market.
SMIDAN says it is currently holding discussions with other stakeholders to develop intervention plans for SMEs that will prevent a figure drop in the 39 million SMEs present in the country, as it emphasizes the need for SMEs to thrive since they contribute 48% of Nigeria's GDP and is responsible for over 85% of employment in the country. Chamun Dabeng, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Chairman of the Nigerian Labour Congress Zamfara State Council, Sani Haliru, and his Trade Union Congress of Nigeria counterpart, Saidu Mudi, are appealing to governments at all levels to honor their promises of providing palliatives to workers in order to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal on workers. They made the call while speaking in an exclusive interview with Trust TV News in Gusau, the state capital. The report.
The state chairman of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, Zamfara State Council, Sani Halilu, and his Trade Union Congress of Nigerian counterpart, Saidu Mudi, lamented that workers in Nigeria are not finding the hard economic situation easy, given the fact that they are yet to benefit from the old 18,000 naira minimum wage, as well as the recent 30,000 naira new wage. They said as a result of these, the Zamfara state workers cannot cope with the rising cost of living, which hit Nigerians hard under the leadership of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who on assumption of office announced the subsidy removal. The labor leaders believe that the Dauda-led administration will alleviate the plight of the Zamfara workers, and in order to improve their welfare and enhance productivity.
Things have changes from frying pan to the fire. But the good of it is there is proper mobilization on why the fuel subsidy is removed, and there is hope based on the interaction between the governor, the president, the governors, and all stakeholders, including the National Electoral Agency, that there is going to be a way of subsidizing the parties to the workers as well as the citizens.
Life these days, everything was not so easy to work. And as a state worker salary is very bigger, and then everything cost of foodstuffs, cost of everything has gone up by almost 100%.
The NLC chairman tasked the country's leadership to be sincere with their promises so that Nigerians can trust them on commitments made to them to salvage them from the current economic situation, which is taking a toll on all.
My appeal to the government of all levels, primary, secondary, and tertiary, that they should be honest, and then they should fulfill their promises. Because when they tell workers that we will see the fruit of the day, that they will increase salary, not even minimum wage, but minimum leave. And actually there are previous leaders that they promise, they fail, and they see the tail end of their story.
The state chairman of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, Saidu Mudi, appealed to Zamfara State Governor to set aside 10 or 20% of funds to alleviate the plight of workers. He noted that workers in Zamfara State are experiencing untold hardship as a result of the petrol subsidy removal.
Even with the 5 days working days, we are not having the expected outcome from the workers. So how much more of the increase is? So as for me, I would have suggested government, let them make a provision for our workers.
The state labor leaders disclosed that plans are underway to meet with Governor Lawal to brief him on the challenges Zamfara workers are currently facing and the need for his administration to provide solutions to them in the shortest possible time.
You're watching News Hour on Trust TV. Coming up after the break, we take a look at recipe for managing convulsion in children. Do stay.
How do they come to Nigeria? They have to come through Niger Republic.
Welcome to News Hour on Trust TV.
The Coalition of Northern Groups, CNG,
Petition followed consultations and meetings.
Hello and welcome to the News Hour on Trust TV. I am
Where do they get what? How do they survive?
Kidnapping is just an extension of catch rustling.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching News Hour on Trust TV. Here's a recap of some of our top stories. We told you that 24-hour curfew imposed in Plateau community relaxed as GOC meets warring parties. You also heard that price of sweet potato considered alternative food goes up in Kano. Moving to other stories, Vice President Kashim Shettima on Tuesday met with 2 state governors from the northern part of the country at State House, Abuja, to discuss pressing issues and work out solutions to the challenges of flooding and insecurity. Gombe State Governor Inuwa Yahaya urged relevant stakeholders to urgently seek solutions to the problem of flooding across the country. On the other hand, Jigawa State Governor Umar Namadi said remedial efforts were already being taken to offset the challenge of flooding in his state. Kende Amodu reports.
Flooding has already started rearing its head in many states across the country. The problems related with last year's torrents have not been properly tackled, and it seems the overflows are on again. Governor Yahaya says the deluge that comes with rains is now a national challenge.
We must work as one people. The problem of flooding is virtually a national issue now. You know, global warming and climate change is affecting all the globe. And for that, we are strategizing. We wouldn't like a repeat of what happened last year to do the same this year. But in whatever we do, we have to be both proactive and reactive.
The Gombe State Governor, who is chairman of the Northern Governors Forum, explains that flooding in the north is most often than not as a result of the overflow of water from rivers Niger and Benue and their tributaries. But there are other problems.
There is siltation, a lot of siltation, and also as a result of poor farming practices and deforestation. The forests and our farms have now turned and gave way for the desert, and those exacerbated siltation that takes place along the streams and the rivers.
But some state governors are not waiting for the federal government to provide remedies.
The flooding in Jigawa State is really a serious issue, and as a government we are doing so many things. We have set up a technical committee of experts, and they are looking at how they can, in fact they have submitted a report, and part of the report we have started implementing. We have bought 2 excavators, and also had Jamara bought 2 excavators. As of today, we are able to dredge the river about 36 kilometers, and we have removed the taifa grass.
Discussions between the governors and Vice President Shettima also revolved around insecurity in the north. Origins of rustling banditry and kidnapping for ransom have been attributed to the struggle for land resources and the encroachment of grazing reserves, cattle routes, and even forest reserves. But this is not a new narrative. The question is, how will problems that have to do with security be resolved?
As the chairman of the Northern Governors Forum, I will ensure that we get to the roots of all those problems, and through the support of the various state governments and the federal government itself, we come up with the solutions, things that will trigger positive action and reaction, not the negatives.
As a government, we will do our best also by involving all the stakeholders, that is traditional rulers, the ulamas, and everybody will be on board to ensure that we sustain the security situation in Jigawa State.
Vice President Kashim Shettima continues to engage stakeholders and is pulling his weight in the support of the president in the interrogation of solutions to some of the nation's pressing challenges. From State House, Abuja, Kende Amudu, Trust TV News.
The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, has appointed chairmen of some key committees in the Senate. Akpabio made the announcement during Tuesday's plenary. The report.
According to the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, Solomon Adeola, who head the Appropriation Committee, while Ali Ndume is the Vice Chairman. Ahmed Wadada is heading the Public Accounts Committee, while Adaramon Lurafel is Chairman Senate Committee on Media. Others are Committee on Rules and Business, headed by Titus Sam Tangeta, Committee on Senate Services, led by Sunday Karimu, and Code of Conduct and Public Petitions, headed by Okechukwu Eze. The Committee on National Security and Intelligence has Shehu Buba Umar as its head, while Garuba Musa leading that on legislative compliance. Announcing the composition of the committees, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio also inaugurated the Selection Committee. While the Selection Committee comprises all principal officers, Akpabio said Appropriation Committee, headed by Solomon Adeola, was set up in the event of any emergency supplementary budget that may arise from the executive. The inauguration is in line with Senate standing rules, which empowers the Parliament to, within 14 days after inauguration, set up the aforementioned committees.
Distinguished Senator Adiola Solomon Olamileko will be the chairman, followed by distinguished Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume as vice chairman.
The names of other committee chairmen are to be announced at a later date. Rashidat Yusuf for Trust TV News.
Still in politics, hoodlums suspected to be political thugs reportedly attacked and vandalized the secretariat of the All Progressives Congress in Ajaka, the headquarters of Igala Mela Odolu local government area of Kogi State. The incident, which happened on Sunday afternoon, reportedly led to the destruction of valuable materials, including posters. The locals reported that the vandals stormed the APC office with weapons, carried out their mission, and disappeared almost immediately. The APC chairman in Igala Mela Odolu local government area, Aliyu Omo, condemned the attack, saying the Sunday episode was one of such attacks on the party's office at Ajaka in the recent times. He said the hoodlums came to attack the party secretariat in broad daylight, stressing that their identities are not hidden to them. The police public relations officer in the state, SP William Aya, is yet to issue a statement to that effect. Similarly, elders in Kogi East have raised security concerns ahead of the November 11 governorship election in the state. Reacting to violent clashes and vandalization of opposition party structures and incessant insecurity breaches in the state, leaders from the region urged the federal government to intervene by deploying neutral security operatives and election officials that cannot be compromised.
In particular, we call for immediate replacement of Kogi State INEC Commissioner and his administrative secretary, Engineer Tanko, who we consider no longer unbiased and as such unqualified to remain in these important positions. Many of the INEC electoral officers, EOs, are now landlords and millionaires, having remained in the same position for more than 8 years. They are all doing the biddings of the power that be in the state.
The People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate in the March 18 election, Ladia Debutu, have called 29 witnesses who testified against Governor Dakwa Abiodun at the tribunal. PDP and Adebutu in the petition marked are challenging the victory of Abiodun based on alleged non-compliance to the Electoral Act and corrupt practices during the election. At the resumed hearing on Tuesday, the petitioners called 10 witnesses comprising voters, party agents and members of the party. Counsel to Adebutu, Godi Uche, SAN, has earlier informed the tribunal the petitioners intend to call 120 witnesses to prove their case against Abiodun. The witnesses all testified against Abiodun and the All Progressives Congress, alleging that elections were cancelled in their polling units and their votes were not counted following disruption of election by suspected APC thugs. The petitioners are expected to call more witnesses Wednesday as the case continues. The Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs says it is working to address environmental and social challenges facing the oil-rich region through various interventions. The Permanent Secretary, Shuaib Belgore, said the ministry is working to close the existing publicity gap by partnering with Media Trust Group to showcase some of its achievements since inception. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman reports.
The Niger Delta region is central to Nigeria's oil and gas production spanning several decades. But the oil-rich region is still grappling with environmental and social challenges. It is against this backdrop that the Ministry of Niger Delta was created in 2008 to provide various interventions in the 9 oil-producing states. Since then, the ministry has been executing programs for socio-economic upliftment of the people in the oil-rich region. Successes on the ministry's mandate recorded were hardly acknowledged, and the gap created remains a challenge. The permanent secretary expressed the ministry's desire to strengthen existing relationship with the Media Trust Group, which he said is imperative with a view to closing the publicity gap and secure a robust and effective coverage.
We'll work towards having focus programs, focus reporting on the Ministry of Niger Delta. In this ministry, we have just one parastatal, and that's the Niger Delta Development Corporation. So part of what you will cover for us will also involve what they are doing. But the emphasis will be on what the ministry has been doing. We do a lot of empowerment programs, educational programs, medical outreach programs, housing, buildings, roads, boreholes, street lights. We do quite a lot to develop the area.
The ministry was created by the late President Umar Yar'Adua to tackle the challenges of infrastructural development, environmental protection and youth empowerment in the Niger Delta region. Shapir Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
The House of Representatives on Tuesday urged the Central Bank of Nigeria to halt the implementation of the Know Your Customer Directive. The directive followed the adoption of a motion brought by Kelechi Nwogu from Rivers State. Nwogu noted that the CBN recently released its Customer Due Diligence Regulations 2023 and its Know Your Customer Directive to galvanize compliance with anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing provisions. He, however, noted that as impressive as the policy is, the directive is in conflict with the provision of Section 37 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended on the right and privacy or right to privacy of citizens. The lawmaker therefore suggested that such tasks should be handled by the Nigerian Police, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, as well as the intelligence and crime tracking agencies.
The privacy of citizens. Also cognizant of the fact that the banks in the country already have the names, telephone numbers, passport photographs, email, national identification number, biometrics verification number, utility bills, and other basic requirements with which to identify, know, and monitor their customers. Mr. Adika also took further cognizance that there are better means of monitoring money laundering, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing, such as the Nigerian Police Force, Nigerian Financial Intelligence, with the Economic Financial Crime Commission (EFCC).
Now moving to health. A doctor's handwriting on any medical report can convey anything from good, not too good, to severe and even life-threatening information for a patient. Hence, when illegibly written to the extent that prescriptions or dosages may be wrongly interpreted by the patients, pharmacists or fellow physicians, it can lead to significant fatal medical outcomes. In this report, medical professionals say checks have now been put in place to avoid errors occasioned by doctors' hard-to-decipher handwritings. Trust TV's Aisha Salihu has details.
According to reports by the Institute of Medicine, about 1.5 million injuries occur each year because pharmacists and healthcare workers misread sloppy handwritings. But physicians have attributed the rush to attend to multiple patients as a busy clinic, leading to overworked hand muscles, jargons of the profession, lack of attention as factors responsible for this. Dr. Agboe Buta, a family physician, says writings considered illegible on the part of some medical professionals are not a deliberate act meant to reduce the risk of transfers or continuous use of prescriptions by patients in order to avoid cost of consultations. He, however, says there are variations in the pattern of handwritings irrespective of the profession.
Even if we write eligibly, the person who is interpreting it at the end of the pharmacy can also misinterpret it. either as a result of a similarity of your writing or his or her interpretation of your writing with certain drugs he or she has in mind. Most prescriptions would have basically 4 components: the name of the drug, the dose of the drug, the frequency at which the drug is taken on either on a daily basis or as specified, and the duration of use of this medication. So each of these subcomponents can be affected by ineligible writing.
On the part of pharmacists who are often believed to have the capacity to decode these illegible prescriptions, some precautionary measures are said to be put in place to avoid medical errors and significant life-threatening medical outcomes.
There is a term they normally use in conveying the message to us. It could be OD or BD or TDS. So what I'm having in my front here is written like TOS. But me as a pharmacist, I know what the doctor wants is TDS. So in the event that we are not able to get what exactly does the doctor want, we get back to the doctor and ask him to kind of write it very clear. At the end of the day, we try to kind of, avoid any error that prescription can cause.
Although many are worried about the implications of doctors' illegible prescriptions, even with the advent of electronic medical records and prescription system, experts say there are checks and balances in the structure of the healthcare system, which, if properly implemented, will avert any health implication.
Adverse drug reactions from errors in dispensing, which arise from errors in prescriptions and with implication for the health of the patient. So when you have seen your patient and you get to the point of the prescription, you must remember that you have to be alert.
Illegible handwritings may lead to confusion, which can cause delays in treatment and mistakes causing fatal medical errors, hence the need for caution on the part of practitioners. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Medical practitioners have identified major causes of convulsion among children and how it can be avoided or managed. Dr. Martins Mosheri and Dr. Ifeanyi Ajufo, who spoke with Trust TV in Asaba, said convulsion in children can be caused by severe malaria, meningitis, effects from an injury in the brain, among other issues. According to them, using a spoon or any other object is really not going to make any difference. They advised parents to seek for proper medical treatment for their children.
Response to either an external or internal problem. A child that is 3 years old that was playing and suddenly started convulsing could be as a result of so many factors. Well, first is we look at our environment and find out what could have been the cause of convulsion in a 3-year-old child. If we say malaria, yes, it's possible, because when the temperature of the body rises above some certain normal, the body tends to react, especially when the thermoregulatory system in the brain has been altered.
Convulsion is commoner in children because the causes are numerous, and there's one particularly that occurs in children, which we call febrile convulsion. You can't see an adult or even a child above 6 years convulsing. It's not common. It's not common for a child above 6 years to have febrile convulsion. What is the commonest convulsion among children is febrile convulsion. You see them jerking. Most times it's generalized, tonic-clonic, or you can see it. And the cause, as the name suggests, febrile means the body is hot. As the body gets hot, it triggers firing, because just the brain firing, abnormal, increased firing, discharge of the brain, sending signals to the muscles, so at the end of the day, you see the muscles jerking.
The Acting Comptroller General of the Nigeria Customs Service, Wale Adeniyi, says contrary to speculations, President Bola Tinubu has not ordered the reopening of all Nigerian borders. Given the clarification after a meeting with President Tinubu at the State House on Tuesday, the Comptroller General of Customs said only 5 borders have been so far reopened. While adding that plans are underway to reopen all the borders, the Acting Comptroller of Customs said the formal opening will be made public in due course.
I can also tell you that part of my discussions with Mr. President is to actively engage customs administrations across our borders, particularly the strategic ones that we must work and collaborate with for us to achieve common objectives of border security and regional integration. In the next 1 week or thereabouts, I will be paying an official visit to Republic of Benin to have discussions with the Customs Administration of Benin and see how we can take forward the issue of collaborations between us, the issue of border security, the issue of importation across the border, and more importantly, how we can deploy technological solutions to very complex border problems.
Residents of Benue State have tasked President Bola Tinubu to lead with integrity, be purposeful as he assumes the chairmanship of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. This is coming a day after President Tinubu was declared chairman of the regional body at his 63rd meeting in Bissau, the headquarters of Guinea-Bissau. Jimmy Azande reports.
The president honored commitments he made at his inaugural speech as the chairman of ECOWAS. The resident tasked President Tinubu to tackle insecurity and deepen democracy in the sub-region.
There's an opportunity for him to, to do well for Nigeria and within the West African sub-region. While accepting his election as chairman of ECOWAS, he said that democracy is the best form of government. So it means that for President Tinubu, he has to be democratic within the country and within the sub-region. He also mentioned the issue of security, and the issue of coup in the sub-region. He said the sub-region cannot tolerate more of coup d'etat. So it's a good thing. But they say charity begins at home. So if he goes out there to say security should be tackled, it means he has to tackle insecurity in Nigeria.
Other residents are concerned with economic developments in the sub-region and said the president stands a chance to enhance its economic stability.
If there is free trade across the continent, then when one gets to the borders, it should be real free movement of goods and services within the sub-region. Business will thrive, wealth will be created. So we're happy he is the chairman, and we know that he's going to not just give lip service, but in reality let the borders be free for trade.
Orafa also said Mr. President should quickly work on a single currency policy for the good of the sub-region.
Other countries and other continents have adopted single currencies, and we'll see how strong the currencies are. So within the African continent, if we adopt a single currency, I think it's going to help, and it is going to deepen penetration of trade among the African nations.
Most of the residents are concerned that President Tinubu has what it takes to develop ECOWAS and take the body to new heights. Jimmy Azande, Trust TV News, Makurdi.
On the international scene, as NATO leaders gather in Lithuania for a meeting that is being dominated by the Ukraine war and Kyiv's desire to join the military alliance, Russia has issued a series of threats. Spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, said they had an objective to weaken NATO because of the United States, Britain, and the entire NATO had an objective to weaken Russia. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, warned that Moscow will take appropriate steps in the event of possible NATO enlargement, adding that his country will protect its legitimate security interests. And finally, let's join Adeni Ajishafe for sports news.
Nigeria Boxing Federation has invited boxers to come for trials on Thursday, 18th July 2023 in Lagos, ahead of Paris 2024 Olympic Games. The boxers will be at the National Stadium Surulere, where the training and elimination exercise will take place at the boxing gym from 19th to 20th. Nigeria did not feed any boxer at the Tokyo, Japan Games. NBF will choose 4 best boxers in each category for trials. Boxers who loses his or her bout at the trials is expected to vacate the camp immediately after the loss. Olympic Games comes off from 26 July to 11 August 2024 in Paris, France. And in football, World Football Governing Body FIFA has confirmed that the suspension of Zimbabwe is lifted and an normalization committee has been appointed. Zimbabwe was suspended by FIFA in February 2022 for third-party interference after the country's sport regulatory body, the Sports and Recreation Commission (SRC), suspended Zimbabwe Football Association (ZIFA) executive led by Felty Kamambo for failure to account for public funds. A FIFA delegation had a meeting with Sport Minister Cassie Coventry, the SRC, and the ousted Kamambo-led board for negotiations, which resulted in FIFA softening its stance, leading to the lifting of the suspension and the appointment of the normalization committee. That's Sport News. I'm Adeniyi Ajishafe.
Come to the end of News Hour on Trust TV. Don't forget to follow us across all our social media platforms. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Thank you for watching.
From the Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.